prior to COVID, at least for our market, we advertise often. Robert and I did, my business partner, that we were relocation specialists, corporate relocation specialists, because most of the moves, inbound and outgoing on the higher end, if they were coming from out of state or going out of state, were corporate directed. People moved because they had to. People moved because they took a new job and they had to move to a new place. And so what we're seeing since COVID is that people move because they want to. When you're in the luxury, dealing with the luxury home market, buyers and sellers oftentimes don't have to do anything. They do what
That's
they
right.
want to do. And so that's one of the things you have to remind ourselves in the luxury home market. Yeah, the sales may be slower, but when someone really wants to move, they move. And although may be a cash buyer, and they don't need a particular interest rate, to buy a home, they still those things still influence decisions. They're watching other markets. They're watching what the economy is doing, obviously. But when it comes particularly to principal residences, primary residences, people do what they want to do. We're not as much subject to interest rates and some of those economic factors. And I'll give you a very good example specifically tied to the sale you referenced
Hmm.
that we closed last week. It was an $8 million sale. And I want to share this with our listeners. That's not our typical sale by any means. And we've been slow here in Nashville, just like most places in the country have been slow, really since I would say since probably July of this year. Just kind of, we have two markets this year: the market for the first two quarters and the market for the last two quarters, like two entirely different markets. So we've been,
Absolutely.
yeah, so we've been slower like everybody else. But when we put that home on the market, it's interesting because there really weren't strong comps to say this is what this home is worth. We felt like the home was worth 8 million. Our seller felt like it was worth 8 million, and the seller had that much in the home. But at the end of the day, whether or not it would appraise, we weren't really sure. And quite frankly, on that particular transaction, it was a cash transaction, but the buyer chose to get an appraisal. It didn't appraise. And I talked to the seller about it, and we said, you know what? Here's the deal. Just like I said a few minutes ago, buyers in this price range, yeah, they'd like something to appraise, and I think they want to know kind of where things are at a moment in time. But they understand this residence at $8 million is like every other part of every other market. It ebbs and it flows. So even though it didn't appraise, we didn't reduce the pricing. We didn't offer to reduce the pricing. We said simply, okay, I understand you got this appraisal. What would you like to do, Mr. Buyer? And the buyer said, hey, we're moving forward. Of course, they would love to have the seller reduce the pricing, but we didn't, and they moved forward anyway. Because again, in this market, luxury buyers and sellers get to do pretty much what they want to do. And if it's your primary home, you want to get it.